Hello everyone. In this video, we will go through 20 sample questions and answer them in detail to help you prepare for the DP203 Data Engineering on Microsoft Azure exam. I will leave a link in the description for the URL to the entire practice test. Also, check out my YouTube channel. I have covered the sample exam questions for other Azure certifications. Please subscribe to my channel, and in case if you don't see practice test for any particular Azure certification, please leave a comment. I will create a video on that. So let's get started. You are working in a cloud company and are assigned the responsibility of building an enterprise data lake on Azure to accomplish big data analytics. Which of the following Azure service would you use in this scenario? Azure Files offer a fully managed cloud file share that can be accessed from anywhere using the SMB protocol. Azure Files is an incorrect choice. Option Azure Disk is incorrect. Azure Disks are typically attached to Azure VMs to store app data in lift and shift scenarios. Azure Queues doesn't help you build an enterprise data lake. It is best used for decoupling the application components and using asynchronous messaging to communicate among them. In this example, the queue storage trigger runs the function as messages are added to the queue by the web API. Option E is incorrect. Azure Tables store key value data pair like a person's contact information. In the given scenario, using Azure Tables is an incorrect choice. Option B is the correct choice. Azure Blobs store unstructured data and helps you build enterprise data lake on Azure. You created an external table in Azure Data Explorer. Now, a database user needs to run a KQL query on this external table. Which of the following function should he use to refer to this table? Once you define an external table, the external table function can be used to refer to it via the KQL query. So option A is the correct choice. Access table and refer table are not valid functions. Now, since you created the external table, you automatically become the table administrator. But nevertheless, any database user or reader can query the external table. So option D, which says that only the table administrator can query the table, is incorrect. You are assigned the task of partitioning the fact online sales table on the order date key column in the dedicated SQL pool. For this purpose, you decide to use the following create table statement. Complete the statement by filling these two blanks with the right words. Well, for the first blank, the answer is distribution. And there are three table distribution options available like hash, round robin, and replicate. For any MPP architecture like Azure Data Warehouse, distribution refers to how the table data is distributed across different compute nodes. It is a hardware concept and is independent of the data. The second correct choice is partition. While we define a partition, we tell which rows of the table should be stored together in its own table within a compute node. Partitioning is more related to the DBMS software and is dependent on the data. For example, here we are partitioning based on the order date key. Option A is the correct choice. When you create a temporal table in Azure SQL Database, it automatically creates a history table in the same database for capturing the historical records. Which of the following statements are true about the temporal table and the history table? Select all options that are applicable. A temporal table is a system version table designed to keep a full history of data changes in a separate history table managed by the SQL engine. And you create a temporal table similar to the way you create a normal table, but with system versioning set to on, and by either specifying the name of the related history table or let system create a default history table. So options B and E are correct answers and options C and D are incorrect choices. And if you are working with temporal tables, read up this page to understand the limitations of temporal tables and the associated history table, one of which is history table cannot have primary key or a foreign key constraint, as they are just designed to store the previous versions of data from the temporal table. But a temporal table must have a primary key defined, so records correlate between the temporal table and the history table. So option F is incorrect and option A is one of the correct answers. You work on a column store table. Although the column store indexes and tables are saved with the column store compression, you are interested to further decrease the column store data size. So you decide to configure an add-on compression known as archival compression. Which of the following method would you use to compress the data by using the archival compression? If you need to further reduce the size of a column store data, in addition to column store compression, you can configure archival compression by using the alter table command and a rebuild option with data compression set to column store _ archive. The benefit of archival compression is reduced storage for data that is not accessed frequently. For example, you can archive older months of data to reduce the storage requirements. So option E is incorrect, as we can indeed configure archival compression on column store data. Option B is the correct choice. You implement an Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage account. You need to ensure that data will be accessible for both write and read operations, even if an entire data center becomes unavailable. Which kind of replication would you use for this storage account? Choose this solution with the minimum cost. First, let's understand how Azure organizes its data centers. Some of the Azure regions support availability zones, and in such cases, there are 3 availability zones in an Azure region. Each availability zone has one or more data centers. LRS, or locally redundant storage, replicates your data within a single data center in a region. So if the entire data center goes down, data will not be accessible for the user. So option LRS is incorrect. ZRS, or Zone Redundant Storage, replicates your data across 3 availability zones in a region. So even if an entire data center in any of the availability zone goes down, data is still accessible in other availability zones. This seems like a feasible solution, but let's also talk about the other options. GRS, or Geo-Redundant Storage, in addition to replicating the data within a data center in the primary region, copies your data to a secondary region. GZRS, or Geo Zone Redundant Storage, is similar to GRS, except that instead of replicating the data within a single data center in the primary region, it copies your data across 3 availability zones in the primary region. So all ZRS, GRS and GZRS are suitable answer choices. But look at this pricing table. Data transfer between availability zones costs considerably less as compared to inter-region data transfers. So ZRS is the solution with the minimum cost. You are working on Azure Data Lake Store Gen 1. Suddenly you realize the need to know the schema of the external data. Which of the following plugin would you use to know the external data schema? While creating external tables to reference data in Azure Data Lake Store or Blob storage, if the data schema is unknown, you can use the Infer Storage Schema plugin, which will help infer the schema based on the external file contents. For example, here I have uploaded a sample CSV file in Azure Blob storage. And within Data Explorer, when writing a query to refer to the file in the storage container, if I use the command evaluate infer storage schema, I get the schema of the CSV file. So option E is the correct answer. Option A is incorrect. The IPv4 lookup plugin checks for an IPv4 value in a lookup table and returns the matched rows. Option B is incorrect too. The MySQL request plugin transfers a SQL query to a MySQL server network endpoint and returns the first row set in the result. Option C is incorrect. As the name indicates, the pivot plugin is used to rotate a table. Option D is also incorrect choice. This plugin is used to unpivot a table. You need to create data semantic models in SQL Server Analysis Services. There are some recommended best practices for data modeling that one should follow. Which of the following are considered as best practices for creating data semantic models? Select 3 options. The answer choices are in 3 pairs: A, B, C, D, and E, F. One of the pair of choices is contrary to the other. Of A and B, B is correct and A is incorrect. You should always strive to create a dimension model even if you ingest data from various sources. Of C and D, C is correct choice and D is an incorrect choice. Replace natural keys, which are keys found in the source system and which are generally string values, with integer surrogate values in the model. This will lead to better join performance and data compression. Of E and F, E is a correct choice and F is an incorrect choice. Decreasing the cardinality of values, or in other words, reducing the number of unique values in a column, allows for much better compression. SQLite differs from commercial RDBMS in terms of features, as it does not support a number of features supported by commercial relational database systems. Which of the following statements is true about SQLite? The first statement is incorrect. Rather than assigning a fixed type to any column like most relational database systems, SQLite uses dynamic typing for values. And in SQLite, only the left outer join is implemented, but not the right outer join or the full outer join. So statement D is the correct choice, which means statement B is also incorrect. And so is statement C, as SQLite does indeed support left outer join. Finally, you can create views in SQLite, but the views are read only. You cannot execute any of the DML statements like delete, insert, or update statement on the view. So statement E is also incorrect. While configuring normalized data component, you apply the z-score function on the chosen columns. From the given options, choose the right formula that is used to convert all values to a z-score. All the given formulas are mathematical transformations for normalizing data in machine learning. The formula for z-score is x minus nu by standard deviation. Option A is the correct choice. Option B is incorrect, as this is the formula for the min-max normalizer. Option C is incorrect too, as the given formula is the definition for logistic function. Option D is incorrect as well, as the given formula is for the log normal function. You need to decide on the technology that your team should use for batch processing in Azure. The requirements demand the technology to meet these capabilities. Which of the following technologies would you use? Well, this question requires to have a thorough understanding of different batch processing technologies. Only if you play around with these technologies and as well as understand this table will you be able to answer this question correctly. From this table, we see that only HD Inside with Spark satisfies all the requirements. Option C is the correct answer. You need to set your default Azure region with the following command. Here, you need to replace the region with the name of the region that is available for your subscription. Which command would you run to check the regions that are available? Well, the Azure CLI commands generally follow this syntax. All commands begin with the keyword AZ and then comes the name of the service or the entity that we are trying to interact with. This can be any Azure service or a role or an account. Note that this value can be more than one word. For example, AZ storage account or AZ role assignment or just a single word like AZ web app. Then the third value is usually a verb like create, delete, list or set which performs the required action. So to list the regions available from your Azure subscription, you would write AZ account list locations. Option B is the correct choice. Your teammate checks the options for input to an Azure Stream Analytics task that needs high throughput and low latencies. He is confused about the input to use. He asks you for help. Which of the following would you suggest? To answer this question, try creating an Azure Stream Analytics job. Here, I have already created one. Within the input section, click Add Stream Input. You see only three options to add an input to a Stream Analytics task, so all the other choices are wrong, which means options A and C are incorrect. Since the question talks about high throughput and low latency, both the options Azure IoT Hub and Azure Event Hub seem like good candidates. IoT Hub is generally used for connecting IoT devices to Azure, and Event Hub is a big data streaming service in Azure. Since there is lack of further information in the question, I would consider both options as valid. You work in a company and you have the responsibility to manage jobs in Azure. You decide to add a new job. While specifying the job constraints, you set MazWallClockTime property to a value 30 minutes. What does it mean? The MazWallClockTime property is specified to set the maximum amount of time a job can be active or running. If the time exceeds or if the job doesn't complete in the specified time, the job is terminated. If you don't set this property, then the job has no time limit. Option C is the correct answer. You work in Azure Synapse Analytics dedicated SQL pool that has a table titled Pilots. Now you want to restrict the user access in such a way that users in Indian analyst role can see the pilot information only from India. Which of the following would you add to the solution? Well, assume this is the sample pilot's data. If users in a specific role should view the pilot's information for a specific country, row-level security is the most suitable choice. RLS enables access control to rows in a table. Whereas if the question had been, if users only in a specific role can view a particular column, for example, salary information, then column level security would be the most suitable choice. CLS enables access control to columns of a table. Option C is an incorrect choice and option D is the correct answer. Encryption does not solve access control problems. However, it enhances security by limiting data loss even if access controls are bypassed. For example, if the hacker obtains sensitive data, then that stolen information is useless if the data is encrypted. Data masking refers to limiting sensitive data exposure by masking it for unauthorized users. And table partitions yield performance benefits and they are not related to security. You are assigned the storage blob data contributor role at a container level. Here are two statements regarding this. Statement 1. You are granted write, read and delete access to all blobs in that container. Statement 2. You can view a blob within the Azure portal. Which of the above given statements are true? For answering this question, let's go to the Azure portal. I have created a new user and assigned him the storage blob data contributor role access to the storage account. When I log in with this user, we cannot even view the storage account resource. The reason is storage blob data contributor gives you data access and not management access, which means we can read the contents of the blob, make updates to the blob and even delete the blob, but we cannot list a blob in the Azure portal. Or in other words, this role doesn't give access to navigate through the portal to view a blob within the Azure portal. A user must be assigned additional permissions like the reader role to navigate through the portal and view the resource. So let's assign the reader role to the user at the storage account level. If you refresh the page, we can view the storage account and can navigate to view containers and then blobs, and we can even edit the blob data. Only the first statement is correct. Option A is the correct choice. You created a data frame. Before issuing SQL queries, you save your data frame as a temporary view. Which of the following data frame methods will help you in creating the temporary view? Once you load the sample data in a data frame, before you can issue SQL queries, you must save the data frame as a table or a temporary view. If you directly issue a SQL query on the data frame, you will get an error that the table or view is not found because data frame is a Python construct and you cannot use it directly in a SQL query. To create a temporary view from the data frame, use the command create or replace temp view. Now you can query this view to fetch the results. Option B is the correct answer. All other options do not represent the correct method to be used. Log Analytics Workspace stores the data collected by Azure Monitor Logs. Log query is used to retrieve the data from a Log Analytics Workspace. From the given list of languages, select the language in which these log queries are written. Data is retrieved from a Log Analytics Workspace through a log query, which is written in Custo Query Language or KQL. In fact, KQL is the same query language that's used in Azure Data Explorer, Azure Application Insights, and Azure Security Center, etc. KQL language is perfect for massive amounts of streamed data like application logs. Option C is the correct choice. After checking the Monitor tab in Azure Synapse Studio environment, you realize that you can improve the performance of the run. Now you decide to use bucketed tables to improve the performance. Which of the following are the recommended practices to consider while using bucketed tables? Select all options that are applicable. To answer this question, first, let's understand the concept of bucketing, and since sort merge is mentioned in the answer choices, let's understand that too. In simple terms, bucketing is a way to organize or sort data so queries like joins become more efficient by avoiding shuffles of tables participating in the join. In a nutshell, for bucketed tables, data is already sorted before you perform the join operation. A sort merge join first sorts the table on the join key and then applies the merge operation on the sorted relations. In other words, if you are doing sort merge join, first shuffling and sorting on the join key happens. Finally, the join operation is done. But if the tables are already bucketed, as in our case, you only need the join operation. Sort operation is irrelevant here. Since you are already using the bucketed tables, a sort merge join is not required. Just a merge join is sufficient. Also, you should try to avoid sort merge join as much as possible because it is computationally expensive. Option A is one of the correct choices. For the same reason, option B is incorrect. Other recommended best practices of using joins include considering the order of joins, starting with the most selective join, and moving joins that increase the number of rows after data aggregation. So option C is also incorrect, and options D, E, and F are the other correct choices. While copying a data factory pipeline, you get a delimited text more columns than defined error. What might be the most possible cause behind this error? Choose the best possible option. Well, from the error message, we understand that there is something wrong with the scheme of the files that we are trying to copy. So let's put that to test. Here, I have a sample CSV file in the source storage container, and purposefully, I added an extra column to the second row so as to distort the data schema. I am trying to copy this file to a target container in another storage account. I have already created a copy activity within Azure Data Factory to copy the file from source to the target container. Let's rerun the pipeline. As expected, the pipeline has failed. The details reveal that the failure happened on the sync side due to the error delimited text more columns than defined. The error message also mentions that the copy activity found more columns than the expected column count, which is 2. So you get this error when you copy files with different schema. Option B is the correct choice. Not only that, in addition to files with different schema, this error also occurs when you copy files that have a variable number of columns or files with different delimiters or some other data issue. Once you're done, let's submit the test and verify the performance. So if you're preparing for the DP203 Data Engineering on Microsoft Azure exam, check the description for the link to the entire practice test that cover the length and breadth of all the objectives of the exam. Also, check out my YouTube channel. I have already covered the sample exam questions for other Azure certifications and some AWS certifications as well. And in case if you don't find them for any particular certification, please leave a comment. I will create a video on that. As always, share the video and please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. And until I see you in the next video, it's goodbye.